Some women that are on birth control for medical reasons, but medical reasons aside, what do we really believe about contraception?
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned about the medical reasons, because sometimes the pill is prescribed because of a medical condition that needs to be treated, and it can be treated in that way because that is the real purpose of that. But contraception really means against life. That's what the word means. Contraception, against conception, against life. And really, and this maybe goes a little bit deeper than it should. But contraception is kind of a contradiction. There's an internal contradiction in contraception, because the whole sexual act is about, the marital act is about gift given, gift received. It's about a mutuality. It's about life. It's about that power of creation that God has instilled within us. It's the power of creation, the power of love that is there. And so if that whole act is about giving and receiving and about life and the power of life and the power of love, and yet we say, we're going to do the act, but I'm going to make sure it doesn't work. I'm going to make sure it doesn't work in this area. That's kind of an internal contradiction. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, from the practical thing, yeah, we prevented a conception taking place, but is it really an honest sexual act of love, act of giving? Or is there something inherently missing in that? One of the things in natural family planning, which means to take advantage of the normal cycles of fertility and infertility, and to refrain from marital intimacy during times in which they are fertile, as opposed to other times, that can be a very legitimate means of regulating birth. If a couple feels that to be responsible, they need maybe not to conceive a child at this time, but there's a big difference between natural family planning, taking care of or taking advantage of the natural fertile and infertile times, than there is of doing an act that is really contrary to the very nature of human sexuality. One of the things that is funny is that more couples who use natural family planning are happy with their marital intimacy than those who contracept. And I think the reason is, when there's contraception, there's something missing in that whole thing. There's something that's just not there that should be. There's a contradiction within that. And that's the reason why the church has taught very clearly that human sexuality needs to be open to life, because that's the very nature of the human sexual act, is to be open to life, of love between a husband and a wife, and that openness to the possibility of life in the midst of that.
Thank you, Father, for sharing this. Go ahead and start talking in your groups.
Okay, listen up, everyone.
I sometimes see things on social media about the topic of abortion. I sometimes see things on social media about the topic of abortion. What do we really believe about this topic? And how can we do a better job at loving those who hold very strong, different opinions?
Okay. Abortion certainly is one of those very, very difficult topics because there's so much division. It's not really a difficult topic when you look at the scientific facts. When you look at the science about human life, you see that from the very beginning of conception, when the sperm and the egg come together, there is a unique human being there. It's not the father and it's not the mother. It is a unique human being from that very moment. And then as that reality. That human being grows and develops. Gradually, more and more it takes on. It develops with regard to the heart, the lungs, the body, the legs, the arms, the whole thing. And it just gradually takes place. But there's a heartbeat after 21 days after conception. So that's very, very early. So there's no question, but it's a human life. But what the Supreme Court said was, it's not that significant of a human life. It's not that important. It's not that valuable, particularly during the first 20-some weeks. It's not that valuable. That's a very arbitrary decision to say it's not valuable when it is a human life from the very beginning. And I think that's the thing that needs to be brought home, is people need to study science a little bit and learn a little bit more about what really takes place there with the embryo, how the embryo becomes the fetus. And you know what the word fetus means? Little one. The little one. A little what? Little one what? A little one human. That's what it means, the whole word. Fetus is the little one. It's the little child, unborn and dependent. And they say, well, it's so dependent, it's not worthwhile. Well, I'd like for you to do an experiment. Take some tape and put it on your nose and your mouth. We're all dependent. Everybody's dependent. I don't care who you are, you're dependent. So the idea that they're dependent upon the mother, that they're a life, that there's so much dependency and so much innocence, you know, that's the reason why, what's the fifth commandment? Thou shalt not kill. Killing the unborn is killing. It is killing. And it's important for us to be able to explain that and to realize that that's what it is. It is killing an innocent human being. So, you know, we should always love everyone, but we don't have to agree with them. One of the things that's I think a mistake in the world today is, if you don't agree with me, you don't love me. Nonsense. Nonsense. We don't have to agree with what we know is wrong, but we can still love the person. We can still love the person. Because very often that person is hurting. That person is, I've often said, you've heard me say this from the pulpit, I hope, that in abortion there's more than one victim. There's obviously the unborn, but also the mother is a victim very often in that as well. Because she felt pressure, she felt there was no other option for her. She felt that she'd been misled, and then later on found out that she had been misled. And so there can be many victims. The father can be a victim too, because sometimes the father wants to preserve and to take care of that life, but he's prevented from doing so. So there's a lot of victims in there. So we need to be very compassionate towards the victims, but also to be very strong in our affirmation of what science tells us, and that is that this is a human being, a human life. And therefore it's valuable, it's sacred, it has an immortal soul, just like you and I do. Okay? It has a soul, it's destined for eternity. That is such a beautiful gift, that gift of that innocent life. So to think about that, to reflect upon it, and to realize that a lot of things that people will say about it is absolutely scientifically false. By the way, one of the things that I have realized more and more, there's a lot of people out there who really exalt science. It's all about science, all about science. And I agree, science is wonderful. And there's no conflict between religion and science. True religion and true science go hand in hand with each other. There may be some tension sometimes, there may be some pulling back and forth and everything, but both are seeking truth. But what I have found sometimes is, When I have an opinion, forget about the science. Forget about what science tells us that that life is, that embryo is. Forget about that, because I've got a different opinion. That's a mistake. We need to base our things in reality, in what is the truth, what is the reality there, not just in our feelings about something. And so often it's a question of feelings. And like I say, sometimes people will say, if you don't agree with me, you don't love me. No, I'm sorry, but sometimes we can't agree, but we always love. Always love. Okay?
Go ahead and take 2 or 3 minutes again and break down that question. If you have more questions, go ahead and write those down. Leaders, if your pen is not working, raise your hand and we'll bring another one for you.